This week, we are shaking it up with wisdom, not just from me, but from my good friend and fellow journeyman actor, Alex Collins. So let's get into it. Everyone, I'm Matthew Cornwell with Get Taped here in Atlanta, Georgia, one of Atlanta's original audition taping services, which I co-own with my amazingly talented, beautiful wife and best friend, Brooke. Happy holidays to you if you're watching this on December 23rd, 2024. Happy Festivus. Today is Festivus, so, good luck on those feats of strength. So this week I decided to pull from an interview that I recorded recently with my good buddy Alex Collins. He is a working actor like myself who also coaches, teaches, has a lot of different ways that he gets his wisdom out into the world. He has an amazing Facebook group called The Approach. Anyways, we sat down a month and a half ago at our old space at Get Taped and just talked about many different topics. So this is part one of the conversation that we had with each other.
Whether you're a new actor or a veteran actor or journeyman actor, the last 4 years have been unprecedented, right? And that's a word that gets thrown around a lot. But from COVID and the fallout to once-in-a-century dual strike to the potential of another strike, all of that has thrown the industry into upheaval, coupled with the perfect storm of European countries, for the first time, some of them offering tax subsidies, which has caused productions to leave. And this sort of explosion and then contraction in the second era of peak TV has left a lot of actors, no matter how experienced they are, kind of going, what next? What next, universe? And so I think now more than ever is the talk the people off the ledge, sometimes ourselves. And I think that's where we start. Is it slow? Is it not slow?
Right.
Can both of those be right at the same time? Yes. Yeah. I think. Yeah. So from a taping facility owner, what do you have to say about that? And let's say this year, 2024.
We could name a dozen projects at any given time that are casting, and yet, so on the one hand, it could be busy, and of course, there's always the seasonality of mustachioed white males or whatever your category is. Sometimes you're in season, and sometimes you're out of season. For whatever reason, things that cannot be predicted and certainly aren't being orchestrated by some nefarious force, which actors like to think that their agent is against them, casting is against them. So, these things that are out of our control that make no sense to us. So there's that seasonality of whether or not you're just, that person du jour. But interestingly, I think part of this contraction, it seems to be that, I don't know, and maybe you have some insight on this too, that there's less roles per episode, let's say, of an episodic, which, the producer in me is going, there's no way they're shooting one-act plays. There was an episode of *Halt and Catch Fire* where they took the leads and the entire episode was in one location. I think there was one random co-star that had two lines because one of them left the location to go get food or something. And so that legitimately would have had almost zero auditions for that episode. Sure. But, multiply that over half a dozen episodics or whatever. And it's just been odd in the sense that, yes, I can sit there and count all the stuff and it can be busy on the one hand. And as a taping service, we might even be busy for a given week. And at the same time, individually, actors, it's understandable that they're getting one to no auditions.
I think for actors who've been around, especially before COVID, and I'll even go farther back in Atlanta and the Southeast, and let's say sort of post-tax subsidy introduction. So we're talking the early teens, right? Early mid-teens, when we used to have to drive to Wilmington a lot. And then self-tape comes along. And we got a false sense of security, might be the wrong word, but our volume of auditions dramatically increased 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And if you're a union actor like we are, I think in our category, white males, that might give you 100 film or TV auditions a year. That's great. By any metric, that's great. If you're a non-union actor, it might be double that. Sure. 200 auditions a year. No, people living in like LA and New York are going, what? That many? I get one theatrical audition a month, if that. Self-tape changed all of that. As self-tape then through COVID proliferated into the entire country, now everybody's getting more. So that factors into decision making. So it also factors into how we process this now post-COVID, post-strike, post-contraction of TV. Whoa, now I'm only at X, whatever X is. I'm like, yeah, but you also have to factor in that globally production is down a chunk, number one. Number two, TV is contracted because we're not in this peak era. We're not at 500 scripted shows anymore. We might be at 400, whatever the number is, but a legitimate, real contraction. So that's going to factor into the volume you get. Your type is going to factor into the volume of auditions you get. Your experience and resume is going to factor in. So what happens is sometimes an actor may be seeking validation of, is it slow? But they're comparing it with someone who's not necessarily apples to apples. And so that's compounding their frustration. So something I tell students, when they're going through a little bit of a crisis, I say, listen, you've been doing this for X amount of years, whether that's 5 or 10 or 20, whomever it is. And I say, you need to have 3 people in your pocket that you feel comfortable asking a question. And the first person, when you're feeling chaotic, when you're feeling like it's slow and the work has dried up and you're never going to audition again and you're never going to be on a set again, and do I need to go get a real job again, that kind of thing. The first person you need to talk to, in my opinion, is someone who is a different gender and a drastically different age category and say, is it slow for you? And if they say yes, you can breathe a little easier. If they say no, ooh, okay. Maybe I go to the second person. And then what you do is you take the same gender, dramatically different age category. Is it slow for you? Yes, it's so slow. Oh, that's 2 yeses. I can breathe a little easier. And then you can go on to the third one, which is your same gender, same category. Yeah. I'm going to pick up the phone. Matt, how you doing, man? Are you ready to jump off a bridge? How slow is it? Oh, yeah, it's pretty slow for me. Okay, good. So now you're reinforcing through people in your network. It's slow for them, it's slow for them, it's slow for them. Why am I freaking out? Yeah. This is an opportunity then in this lean season. Perhaps I leaned into my training. When was the last time I revamped my materials? If it's been 4 or 5 years since you got your headshots, maybe that's also factoring in addition to the fact that it's slow for you right now. Yeah. One thing we didn't talk about is also all of this 22, 23, 24 stuff also coincided with the organic ending of a number of Southeastern projects that ran for a long time. And people aren't necessarily consciously aware of that. The Resident ended, and that cast a lot of people. Yeah. The Walking Dead franchise ended. That cast a lot of people per episode, right? Ozark ended. Less people per episode in there. But that alone, we're talking 20 seasons of TV between those 3 shows. And so they're not greenlighting replacements for that. Sure. And so, yeah, that's a few hundred roles, which means that's several hundred auditions actors are missing out on.
Yeah. It's a good point. And I love that sort of list of the 3 people to have on your Rolodex. And that none of those are your agent, because that's a whole other discussion as actors and their relationships to their reps. And, we see the whole gamut of that relationship, if you will. Some actors are so terrified to ever ask a question of their agent because maybe they're new with them and they want to do it perfect or whatever, right? Whatever is contributing to that mentality. And then there are actors who've been with their agent for a long time and are resentful of their agent. And so any conversation is already now going to be colored by that emotion, whether it's an email that comes across with the wrong tone or, a phone call or, a walk-in, unscheduled walk into the agency, which, now I know a lot of the agencies are still doing a lot of mixed remote in person. So it's then it'll be fueled even more if you show up to your agent's office and no one's there and you're angry because you're already angry that you're not getting submitted for things. So I think it's such a good, I think buried in your recommendation there is maybe that corollary of if you have a great relationship with your agents, sure. If you feel like that's someone you can talk to and they don't think you're neurotic and you don't feel like there's any sort of weirdness there. But a lot of actors don't have that relationship. They feel unsure about their agent relationship?
That's a wonderful thing to talk about. I think once you're already signed and with that agent, it may be a little too late to determine what the style of the relationship is going to be like. It's sort of like love languages. Figure it out while you're dating. Figure it out in the meeting. Figure it out before you sign with them. Hey, what's your communication? Do you care if I text you? Do you care if I call you once a month? Because some agents in our market do function a little bit more like managers where they're okay with more touch points. Yeah. They do, hey, yeah, no problem. Call me anytime. Other agents in our market are far more hands off. And they're like, I don't need to hear from you. I need you to confirm you got the audition. I need you to get the audition on time. And if I ask you for something like, hey, I need you to update your theatrical headshot, tell me when you're going to update your theatrical headshot or send it to me, right? Yeah. That's the communication level. And so both are right, depending on who you are as an actor. Yeah. And depending on where you are as an actor. Some actors need that, coaching, the arm around the shoulder. Hey, you're okay. Stick there. You're good. Hang on. Some don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that now. I needed it at a different point. I might need it again.
Well, and that reminds me of, this will be dancing around a couple topics, but I think that they're tied together, which is when I used to teach beginning acting, I would have some students come in and after a couple of weeks, sometimes the first day, sometimes it was maybe a month or two into taking class, they would say, Matt, please just tell me if I suck. Like they wanted me to rip them apart. And it's like, I'm the wrong person for that. Like, that's not my personality. I would never, if I was the coach, I might be able to play the coach who is abusive and uses fear to tear down a student or a player and try to build them back up with whatever my philosophies are. But it's like, I didn't learn that way and I'm not built that way. I'm much more of like, I meet you where you are, and through love and encouragement, I'm going to build you up and improve you from where you start. And so nowhere in my being is the ability for me to yell at an actor or tell them they suck. And I certainly wouldn't want to do that if then the actor sitting next to them needs to be coddled, And so, but I think to your point, sometimes actors don't think about that. The like you said, the love language of that other person in their professional life, whether it's the agent or maybe their teacher, and to try to suss that out and determine that at in those initial meetings, even let's use the word trolling them on social media and seeing how, if they're the type that seems to be really encouraging and celebratory of their actors on social media, like, look who booked it, then it might tell you something about how they are more proactive in, like you said, those touch points. Whereas if you can't find any presence of that rep on social media, they might be a little bit more left-brained, data-driven. Here's your audition, send it to me before the deadline. Great. And yeah, we don't ever talk. We don't need to see each other. I don't need to hold your hand, hopefully. Because then, like you said, you don't want to get 6 months or 2 years into that relationship. And again, now resentment's building because you didn't perceive that correctly, or you just let it go on too long before you did something to correct it.
You just hit on a really important thing, is when a relationship does sour for whatever reason, right? We talked about the love languages at the beginning of the relationship. Well, there's a right way to exit a relationship as well. And agents understand it. Actors leave. Actors should understand it. Maybe you're going to get dropped at a certain point. But there's sort of a right way to exit. And I think once an actor is already really frustrated, they want to bolt. They want to, grass is greener on the other side. I need a different agent. This agent's not doing anything for me. Well, hold on a second. Have you clearly communicated to them what your frustrations are? Not in a random email, not in like one last line of a confirming an audition email, but have you listed your bullet point frustrations or whatever they are? Then have you had that conversation follow up with the rep, to the rep saying, I understand, maybe we can try these things. I'd love for you to get this particular headshot, which I notice we don't have right now, but I hear what you're saying about these kind of roles you'd like to go out for. Great. The actor then needs to deliver. Give the agent what they ask for in a timely manner. Then the hardest part is wait, because you've got to give the reps enough time to cycle those materials. If you're trying to go from all-American, fun dad to serial killer, Casting sees you as one thing. If that's been your bread and butter for a certain amount of years, but you want to stretch your acting muscles, needs a different headshot. It needs different clips. And then it needs the repetition of your agent submitting, pitching for casting to then have a light bulb and go, you know what? Yeah, Matt could be a good serial killer. Let's bring him in for that thing that we're doing next episode. Okay, great. But that could be 6 months. So you can't, I'm frustrated with my agent. Hey, agent, I'm frustrated with you. And then 2 weeks later go, I'm out. It's 3 months minimum, probably more likely 6 months. Then, okay, if you reach an impasse and you've asked for certain things, they've communicated that they want to help, and then there's no movement, the needle hasn't moved, then maybe you can both exit the relationship gracefully. But even when you do exit the relationship, and I think this is where we don't always understand what the other side of the desk is like as actors. We have a very myopic view of it, both what agents do and managers do, and especially what casting does. And I think we all need a little bit more empathy. All the stakeholders, right? I think actors need to be more empathetic on how difficult being an agent is. You know how much work they have to do to book one day co-star at scale for which they make $108? They are not making a lot of money. No one gets into the agent game to like become a millionaire. It's because they have a passion for people and a passion for connecting people in the right places. And then casting the same way. Casting does root for us. It frustrates them when Matt has auditioned for this show 10 times. And if you've been in Atlanta long enough, you've all had shows where you have your number. 10, 20, 50, if it was a particular long-running show about the military in North Carolina. Everybody has their number,
yeah.
Right? And so the empathy for all the stakeholders is important. And I think it's important that agents really understand every single audition an actor gets, they put a little bit of their heart and soul into. And 95% of the time, you're not going to hear anything. You don't even hear the no. You're going to hear nothing. And so that breaks an actor's heart just a little bit every single time. And the longer that time goes on where you don't hear a yes, the more you're kind of guarding your heart, which makes it harder for you to do your job, to create empathetic humans and realistic depictions of other people. And so if an agent does need to have a meeting with an actor and say, hey, you're just not delivering the goods for us, and then ultimately, hey, we need to drop you, that needs to be a human conversation. And I know that's difficult and it's uncomfortable, but there's a right way to do that too. So the actor can exit the relationship gracefully and the agent can exit the relationship gracefully.
But it does feel like there's this very measurable, finite piece of my soul that I give up for every audition, and everything that surrounds the opportunity of hoping and waiting and then trying to release it, but I really haven't fully released it yet, because then when I do find out that someone else booked it, then it stings, and I'm like, oh, I thought I had released that. It's like, wow, it's come back. Or it might be a year later when I see the episode or the movie and I go, oh, I auditioned for that. And then it comes back and you realize, oh, that healed, but there's a scar there. And it might be a tiny scar that no one can see, but I feel it. Yeah. So I think for actors in all of these relationships, because of that emotion that is just nearly impossible to compartmentalize fully, it means that we're on the hook, I think, for having maybe a little bit more of that empathy, or at least cooler heads. Yeah. Because for the agent, it's a little easier for them, perhaps, and not being an agent, I certainly don't want to speak for them, but they're in a volume business, and so they're not as concerned with my individual wins and losses as I am. No one is. I'm the only person who really cares that much about my career, and so I need to remember that, I think, more so than the agent does. We all can learn a little bit more about each other, but actors are so quick to make those judgments and about things that oftentimes we don't even know what's going on behind the scenes. Because how many times have I or witnessed an actor that's maybe come through, get taped, who's gotten frustrated about something, but then they booked it anyways. And then it's like, so wait, what was that you were yelling and screaming about? And then you booked it. And so I think there's just a lot for all of us to by all of us, I mean actors, to kind of just slow down a little bit, maybe ask more questions. And like you said, in that sort of Rolodex of people, if you have someone that you can ask these questions that you won't be judged for. And again, I think that's why we don't necessarily go to our agent for that, because we're afraid to be judged by them. But we own a taping service, Brooke and I, so we don't mind ever actors asking us questions like, is it slow, or what do you think, or whatnot, because it is tough to, in that vacuum of no feedback, to figure things out.
And your understanding of who you are as an artist changes over time as well. I first got in the game and you're like, great, I'm going to be on a poster. Yeah. I'm going to be on a red carpet. And that's not an illusion of wanting to be famous. I've never wanted to be famous, but you see yourself in an A-lister or somebody known on that TV show, right? Doing talk shows where, oh yeah, 5-10 years, that'll be me. I didn't know how to act for the first 10 years, let's be honest, right? And then so your definition changes. Well, maybe I don't really want the thing that I thought I wanted. Maybe I want this. And this is different for everyone. Maybe it's, I only want to make enough money to only be an actor. Or I want to be a series regular, whatever that is. For some people, it might be number 1 on the call sheet. For some people, it might be number 7 or number 8 on the call sheet, And again, you kind of reassess and change and move that needle a little bit every year. And you could sort of interpret that as you're having to lower your expectations as you prolong your time in this industry. Maybe it's not lowering. Maybe it's actually refining and getting a little bit more realistic.
Okay, we're going to stop there for now. Be sure to tune into the channel, subscribe if you haven't, so that you get notifications when we drop the second part, possibly even the third, fourth, or fifth part of this conversation between Alex and myself. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on set.